This recording is for people who missed class on Thursday, the 20, I forget, but it's not yet November, October still. Okay, so first, one thing that's really important that we know is that, and please send me the answers to the questions via email to get your 8 points for today. So, this is all about setting the calendar for the entire year. And we know that the court of Jewish law sits on the day that either is going to be day 30 or of the previous month or day 1 of the next month. And so basically, we're waiting for witnesses to arrive. If they arrive and we accept them, this becomes day 1, and the days after that, if they do not arrive, or for some reason we don't accept them, then this becomes day 30 of the previous month. So what does Rabban Gamliel do? That's question number 1. Rabban Gamliel basically says, I accept these witnesses. They are not Edim Shekarim. They are Edim Amitim. They are true witnesses. So I'm going to call this day 1, meaning my next day is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the month. And day 10 of that month, because this is the month of Tishrei, is Yom Kippur. Rabbi Yehoshua also would be sitting on that day number 30 or day number 1. But he said those Edim are what? And because that's question 2, and question number 3 is because of that, what is he calling what Rabban Gamliel calls day 1? What is Rabbi Yehoshua calling that day? That's right. Rabbi Yehoshua, that's question number 3. Rabbi Yehoshua is calling that day 30 of the previous month. So basically, we see that Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Yehoshua are basically one day off from each other. Each are going to have a Yom Kippur, but for Rabban Gamliel, his Yom Kippur, for instance, happens on Wednesday, or Tuesday night to Wednesday, whereas Rabbi Yehoshua, his would begin and end when? That's question number 4. So now Kate asked the question, which was a great question, of isn't it interesting that Rabban Gamliel makes a decree to Rabbi Yehoshua and says, Rabbi Yehoshua, I need you to prove to me that I am right and you are wrong. And what Kate brought up is actually there are 2 ways to do that. One way could be that Rabban Gamliel could say, you need to come to me on the day that I'm calling Yom Kippur, and you need to show me that you're observing that day. Okay? Or Rabban Gamliel could say, no. Here's how you prove it to me that I'm right and you're wrong. You need to show up on the day that you say is Yom Kippur, and you need to do all these things that are violating that day. So I know that you're not holding that that's Yom Kippur. So, and Kate asked the question, why is it of those 2 possibilities that both of them make total sense? Why is it that Rabban Gamliel decides the second and not the first? Why does Rabban Gamliel believe that in order for Rabbi Yehoshua to prove to him that he holds by Rabban Gamliel, he has to come and unobserve his day on the day that he thinks is Yom Kippur? So he's saying, Rabbi Yehoshua, the day that you're holding is Yom Kippur, you need to show me that you're violating the practices of Yom Kippur on that day. And that's the way to go. So why is that? And I think actually by seeing this whole map out, we actually understand why that is. So your question number 5 is trying to answer that question. Why wouldn't it work for Rabban Gamliel to say, you can prove to me that I'm right and you're wrong by coming to me on the day that I, Rabban Gamliel, think is Yom Kippur, and observing on that day. That way I'll know that actually I'm correct and that you're viewing my view as correct. Why couldn't that work? Why does he need Rabbi Yehoshua to come on Rabbi Yeshua's day? Okay, that's question number 5. I'm not going to give you the answer to that one. We all kind of had some really interesting answers in class, but I look forward to seeing your answer to that question. All right, so we're moving forward with the story. I have the Hebrew here, but I'm hoping that you have the English as well. So I'll go like this. Shetavo etzli b'makelcha u'v'me'otcha b'yom ha'kippurim shachal liyot b'cheshboncha. This is Rabban Gamliel talking, that you need to come to me with your staff with your money on the day that Yom Kippur falls out according to your calculations, Rabbi Yoshua. Okay. So after that, what happens next is halach umatzao Rabbi Akiva meitzer. Rabbi Akiva went and found him in distress, found Yoshua in distress. That's so interesting. Where was the last time? Do you remember us hearing about Rabbi Akiva doing something kind of nice in a previous story that we've had? Oh yes, I actually remember that. Look at this. If we go back to the Lo Bashamayim He story, we say, who is going to inform Rabbi Eliezer that he's now banned from the academy? And Rabbi Akiva says, I'll go and tell him, because if someone else goes who's not fitting and informs him of this, he will be destroyed. All of a sudden, if we put these two things together, Rabbi Akiva is the goer and is trying to kind of make Rabbi Yoshua feel better or talk to Rabbi Yoshua. And here he's doing something very similar. So we learn already a little bit about the characteristics of Rabbi Akiva. And what are some of those characteristics? That's question number 6. And by the way, this book right here called The Orchard by Yochi Brandis is actually an attempt to write the story of Rabbi Akiva using all of the different kind of stories from the Talmud. So if you get excited by these stories and you are a great author, those are stories that still need to be written, or stories about some of the great rabbis from the Talmud and kind of fleshing them out and kind of giving them life. Rabbi Akiva goes and finds Rabbi Yoshua, and he says, Amar lo, yesh li lilmod shekol ma she'asa Rabban Gamliel asui. I have something to teach you, or there's something that I'm going to teach you about, and to help you understand, Rabbi Yoshua, that everything that Rabban Gamliel does is allowable. He is allowed to do what he's doing. So, Shene Emar. And so here's how we have, and as it's Shene Emar is a code word for as it says in the Torah. So Rabbi Akiva is now going to bring proof to Rabbi Yoshua to show him, this is question number 7, to show him what? Okay, and here is his proof text right from the Torah. Eila Moadei Adonai Mikra'ei Kodesh Asher Tikru'u Otam. These are the festivals of God, the holy festivals that you call them, that you will call them. These are the festivals of God, holy festivals that you call them. Okay, so getting that as translation, what is Rabbi Akiva learning from those psukim? Before we get to Rabbi Akiva actually tells us in a second what that means. But what do you think it means? And how could he be using it? Remember, he's trying to use this part of the Torah as proof that Rabban Gamliel is correct. So question number 8 is, how do you think he uses these verses to do it? I'm just writing down this question so I remember it when I come back, when I look at your stuff. Okay. And actually, Rabbi Akiva helps us out, because Rabbi Akiva gives his understanding of this verse, and he says this: whether during its time, right, whether these holidays are during their time, or whether they are not set during their time, ainli moadot, and this is God talking here, I don't have any holidays except for Elu, except for these, the ones that you call. Meaning, Rabbi Akiva is saying, if we have those 3 umpires, one that says, I call it like it is, I call it like I see it, or it ain't nothing till I call it, which one of those 3 umpires is Rabbi Akiva saying that Rabban Gamliel is? And of course, it's number 3. Rabbi Akiva is saying, hey, Rabban Gamliel calls it like he sees it, or he calls it, it's nothing until Rabbi Gamliel calls it, and once Rabbi Gamliel calls it, that's what we follow, even if he's wrong. Okay, so let's go to our next verse here. So Balo Etzel Rabbi Dosa ben Harkunus. Okay, this is an amazing part of the story. He comes, and this is Rabbi Yehuda comes to Rabbi Dosa ben Harkunus and says to him, and Rabbi Joseph ben Harkunus says to him. So what's happening here? Fill in this gap. So why is he going? So this is question number 10. Why would Rabbi Yehuda, of all people, why would he go to Rabbi Dosa ben Harkunus? Do you remember that name being brought up before? Oh, I remember that name being brought up before. That name is brought up before. Actually, let me see if I can find it. Do we have it? That name is brought up before um, because right here, sorry, right here it says, right, this is the second case. Two witnesses came and said, we saw the moon in its time, and then at night we didn't see it. And Rabbi Gamliel said, I accept that. Rabbi Dosa ben Harkuna says, those guys are false witnesses. They are lying. How could it be? Someone can't be pregnant one day, give birth, and then still be pregnant the next day. That just doesn't work, right? And Rabbi Yoshua said, I agree. So why is, of all people, why is Rabbi Yoshua now, first, he doesn't hear Akiva's words and be like, wow, Akiva, you have actually convinced me. I am going to go right to Yavne, to Rabban Gamliel. He actually first goes to Rabbi Dosa ben Harkinus. Why? Why? And that's question number 11. Why does he go there? Okay, and of all people. Okay, and so what does Rabbi Dosa ben Harkinus say to Rabbi Yehuda? He says the following: if we actually go ahead and question all the things that Rabban Gamliel does, we need to trichin anu. We need to actually then go ahead and question and investigate every single court that has ever existed from the time that Moshe was the head of that court of that court, way back in the time that the Torah was written. So what is Rabbi Dosa ben Harkinus saying here? Okay, that's question number 12. And question number 13 is he actually saying something different than Rabbi Akiva said, right? Rabbi Akiva said actually that Rabban Gamliel is like the umpire number 3, the one who says, it ain't nothing until I call it. Rabbi Dosa ben Harkinus, is he saying something different or is he saying something the same? That's question number 13. And I think actually that Rabbi Dosa ben Harkinus is saying something different. He's saying it's not about whether Rabban Gamliel is right or not. It's not about that Rabban Gamliel has the power to interpret the truth. It is about what will happen if we start questioning every single thing that Rabban Gamliel does. Because it doesn't stop there. That means we're going to have to question all the other courts that came before him as well. And that will do what? What will that cause, basically? Okay, so Rabbi Joseph ben Harkinus is arguing from a completely other place of this is about your following Rabban Gamliel is not a question of who's right and who's wrong. It's a question of how we maintain the integrity, the validity of a court. That when a judge says something, we follow him, because if we don't, then chaos ensues. And for some reason, this argument, and not the Rabbi Akiva argument, this is the argument that convinces Rabbi Yoshua to go to Yavne before Rabban Gamliel on Rabbi Yehuda's Yom Kippur. By the way, Rabbi Yosef ben Harkanos doesn't just make this up. He uses a shene'emar. So when we see the word shene'emar, question number 14, what do we know is coming next after a shene'emar? We know that there's a quote from the Torah coming next, meaning I'm not just making this up. The Torah actually proves to me this is correct. By the way, one thing that we brought up in class, which I thought was really interesting, was, okay, Rabbi Akiva might be talking about the umpire being able to interpret what truth is, right? Whatever he says is true. But in the end of the day, when we talk about the difference between truth of Rabban Gamliel and truth of Rabbi Yoshua, we're not saying that Rabban Gamliel believes this is the first day of the month, and Rabbi Yeshua believes that this is the first day of the month, right? I mean, they're pretty close. I mean, they're like 24 hours off from each other. Like they're kind of very similar. Like they're not outside the bounds of possibility there, right? So I think it's interesting to say like it's not as radical as we think it is, but still it's a big argument. And so I guess we're up to this point, and we were asking the question of is Rabbi Yehuda convinced because Rabbi Akiva says this is about Rabban Gamliel being the umpire, or this is about the integrity of the system of the court? And I think it's number 2 and not number 1 that actually is what eventually convinces Rabbi Yehuda to go. So Rabbi Yehuda goes. He go halach l'yavne etzel Rabban Gamliel b'yom shechol Yom Kippur liyot b'cheshbono. So he does exactly that. He goes on his day of Yom Kippur, the day after Rabban Gamliel says it is, and he shows up with his staff and his money. Rabban Gamliel stands up. He kisses his head and says to him, Rabbi says, "Come in peace, my rabbi and my student. You are my rabbi because of your wisdom, and you are my student because you have accepted my words." Okay. Final question, which I asked everyone in class. I asked, who is the hero of this story? And the amazing thing was, I heard different comments from everyone. So I'd like to, for your final part of this assignment, I'd like you to make the case that A, okay, so first of all, Rabbi Yehuda, make the case that Rabbi Yehuda is the hero of the story, 16. Make the case that Rabbi Dosa ben Harkanus is the hero of the story. Make the case that Akiva is the hero of the story. It's question 19. And then question 20, make the case that Yehuda, Rabbi Dosa, make the case, and one person, I think it was Kelvin, said the witnesses were the heroes of the story. So make that case. All right, and that's it. Thanks, everyone.